So for the last couple weeks, I grew tired of all the coverage about the Capitol Hill organized protest, or I think it was first called Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or whatever you want to call it, about the anarchists have taken over the Seattle area. The anarchists are creating violence. The anarchists are exploiting the fucking neighborhood. I don't know. You heard a lot of it, and I'm pretty sure about 80% of it was just tweets from Trump, and then people just blast those out, and that's what happens. But that's not entirely of it. There's obviously bias in the media, and it just is fucking ridiculous because if you actually know the history of anarchism and what it means, then it dumbfounds you. Because everybody, well, mostly everybody, at least at an adult age, specializes in something, and when they see someone talking about their specialization, or at least even moderate specialization, in an absurd way, it just dumbfounds you. It's stupid. And first, about the Capitol Hill organized protest or Capitol Hill autonomous zone, whatever you want to call it, be very weary about what you hear in the news or wherever the fuck you're getting your information, because there's just so much misinformation about everything. It's just fucking ridiculous these days. But it's on purpose. You got to realize that this is on purpose to confuse people and to make them think that they can't believe in anything. And one of the biggest ones, and even the ones that are true, the true. So, for example, I keep seeing this one that says this sort of transcript by this person that says they couldn't get into their business or their home because the person was asking, "Oh, where you going?" And they kept asking, "Where you going?" Okay, and that shit got spread around so much. I saw it countless of times, and it's like, really? That's the thing that makes it wrong, that makes the whole thing meaningless? That's stupidity. That's absurdity. And another thing, and just and that happened a couple of times. And really, if you think these things out, like let's say, how many complaints are there of average society in the United States? Just look at your fucking Facebook feed about people complaining about their everyday lives. What does that say about the whole world? Should we just cancel society because everybody's complaining about everything all the time? I don't think so. And it doesn't make sense if we do that to an autonomous zone. And just really, and I know there were shootings there the last couple of days, and that's one of the reasons it was disbanded now, but, and it's for good reason too. But if we rationalize it further and we think about all the shootings, all the rapes, all the murders, all the stealing that happens in everyday society, then we kind of rationalize it doesn't make sense to say that whole thing was meaningless just because this happened. Like, come on, it doesn't make much sense. But that's just, I wanted to get that off my chest. But anarchism. So I want to talk about anarchism because it's a very representative term, idea, ideology, whatever you want to call it, for the historical struggle for freedom in the world, basically. And it spans generations, it spans decades, and it's a large representative of it. And it's a large representative of it because it's so diverse. Because one of the reasons what common people, not the Wall Street people, not the plutocrats, not the oligarchy or whatever, one of the reasons common folk, regular folk, just working folk that don't give a shit about having power, that just want to live happy lives and simple lives and that's it, they can't come together and defeat those sons of bitches is because they have such different ideas and they're so diverse. It's hard. Everybody's different, and it's just hard. I would just give you something that exemplifies that. So in anarchism, there's so many terms for whatever kind of anarchism you like. This isn't even all. There's anarcho-feminist, anarcho-syndicalist, anarcho-pacifist, anarcho-primitivism, and individualist anarchism, anarcho-communist, anarcho-mutualist, anarcho-collectivist, and anarcho-naturism, and I'm pretty sure there's a bunch more, but I'm not going to name anymore because there's kind of no point in that, because I'm not really going to talk about the specifics here. But you get the diversity in it. But the main idea within anarchism is to reject coercive hierarchy. Now, what do I mean by that? Personally, before I get to what I mean by that, I'm more of the line of an anarchism without adjectives. As in, let's not split hairs over abstract ideas for now. Let's just unite and let's do what we have to do to overcome the big elephant in the room, the corporate super houses, the corporate whatever. And let's do that first, and then we can deal about what kind of economy, structure, society that we want to talk about. That's what makes sense to me. And personally, I think that's what should make sense to everybody. There's a lot of disagreement among the left that's kind of infuriating when you really read about it. But yeah, and that's basically what it means. It means that you're against coercive hierarchy. What does that mean? It means that we, in society, if you think about it, because a lot of people don't think about their lives, and that's fucking reasonable. I mean, if you're a single mother with, let's say, 3 kids, and you have to work 2 jobs, you're not gonna be fucking thinking about anarchism. What the fuck? You're gonna be thinking you need to put food on the table. Same thing for parents and whatever kind of middle lower class status that you're in. You're not gonna be thinking about liberation when you're so busy taking care of your family. What was it? Half of American workers earn less than 30,000 a year, and that was before the pandemic. Now, how many fucking millions of Americans don't have a fucking job right now? You really think, oh, they're gonna get home, get out there the laptop or their book on anarchism and read? No. That's why they don't think too much about this. But when you start thinking about this idea that we have to get rid of coercive hierarchy, you begin to take notice. Some of the examples, I'll just give 3 when you start thinking about it. So, democracy in the US. So, for some reason, Americans think that democracy is just a sort of practice where you go to a building once or twice a year and you just say yes to whatever paper decisions are in front of you, and that's democracy. How the fuck is that democracy? How is it you just deciding over one person and over another person on short information, on a low amount of information that is gonna rule your fucking country? I don't think that sounds like democracy if you really think of it. And why is that coercive hierarchy? Because it's a system. Why do you think you're going to go vote on limited information, on your limited amount of time for 2 candidates that you don't know that much about? That's coercive hierarchy. You don't have any power over the organizational structure that's happening behind the scenes. Another one, let's say healthcare. Why are Americans having to pay the highest cost of healthcare in the entire world? Oh, maybe it's because we don't pay attention to the organizational structure that's going on in there. Oh, or maybe corporations. Why in the workplace do we have to listen to a board of directors? Why do a board of directors have the power to just move thousands of jobs overseas without the consent of the workers? Oh, and don't give me the bullshit. Oh, the investors, they took a risk. What the fuck? So you mean workers don't take a risk when they take a job? Lunacy, stupidity beyond comprehension. Because obviously, any worker, if they're going to take a job, they're risking getting fired, not being able to find a job for a couple weeks. And as we know, workers live last time I checked, 78% of workers live paycheck to paycheck. So who's taking a risk? Who's not taking a risk? Everybody takes fucking risks. And that's the point. So when you start thinking about this, you start saying, oh, maybe in a lot of parts of society, there's structures where you, as an individual, you participate in, and you don't have much control about anything that happens there. And okay, maybe some of you are like, oh, but that's just how things are. Okay, but why are they like that? Why? Why do you have to participate in structures that are like that? It doesn't make any sense. And when does it make sense? How do you fix this? You fix this when power has to justify itself. Power, in order for power to control you, oh, let me put this so it can make more sense. So the word anarchism comes from the word anarchia from the Greeks, from, if anybody's aware, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. It comes from the word anarchia, which means without ruler. And when you really start to think about it, why do you want a fucking ruler when you can work, make decisions with your workers when you're the ones down there doing the work instead of 12 people shipping your jobs overseas without giving a shit of anything in the world. So how do you fix that? Well, you first have to begin asking questions. And the first question you should answer is this hierarchy justified? And then if it is, for example, what is a hierarchy that's justified? A hierarchy that's justified, for example, is if you're a parent and your kid goes out in the street and you forcibly go get your kid and fucking pick that fucking kid up and get him off the street, that's obviously justified because you don't want your fucking kid to die. That's justified authority. That's justified hierarchy because you need to keep your kid safe. So that's the principle that any sort of hierarchy, organizational structure that exists in society has to live by. If they can't live by it, it has to be restructured, reformed, and fixed. Now, if people thought about this more on their everyday basis, we'd be in another place in society. And some of you might start asking, why hasn't this idea, it sounds all good and all paradise of anarchism, why hasn't it flourished? Well, motherfucker, I fucking tell you, look around you. Has it flourished? Yes, it has. Because the reforms that have happened in the last couple centuries, for example, why do we get rid of slavery? We got rid of slavery because it was an unjustified form of hierarchy. Why should people have power, be above in the hierarchy over other people? That's nonsense. What happened to human freedom and human pursuit of happiness? The Constitution says that. Why do we get rid of feudalism then? Because it doesn't make sense that a person should just allow another person to live with them just because they do all the labor for them, and that other person just has to subsist in that way. We said that was wrong. More contemporary forms. Why did we get rid of child labor? Because maybe we said that the companies that were forcing us to send our kids to work for them because they wanted more profit, we thought maybe that was a wrong form of leadership by them. And maybe that's wrong. Okay, and this is where you start getting the idea of anarchism behind these ideas. So, but if you want more extreme versions of anarchism, we have an extreme version in the 1936 Civil War in Spain, where there was a flourish of anarchism. And a lot of people confuse anarchism with Marxism, or, well, that's the similarities. Or what I mean specifically, they confuse it with the Soviet Union and Bolshevism, which is a completely different thing. And you can see by it, because in the midst of the Spanish Civil War in Catalonia, I believe, and in other cities, there was a time where common folk and workers were able to set up their organizational structures, their working structures, in a non-hierarchical way, and they had the power over it. But this was crushed by, and this goes to tell you how things work in this world. This was crushed by the Bolsheviks, the fucking Soviet Union. It was combined. It was crushed by the combined force of the Soviet Union, the fascists with Franco in Spain, and the liberal Western democracies. It took all three of them to crush a relatively tiny-ass anarchism experiment. And that just goes to show you. And this has happened in Korea and Ukraine, and specifically too in the Paris Commune in the 18th century. Oh, in the 17th century, I believe. But it always goes to show you. And another this is another response to why haven't these ideas flourished, because they're suppressed. They're suppressed. A lot of anarchism was a large movement, and the 19 around before and in the 1920s in the U.S. But due to Woodrow Wilson's Red Scare, it was crushed. I just said in the Spanish Civil War, they were extremely crushed. A bunch of murders, whatever you want to talk about. In the Paris Commune, completely bunch of murders crushed. So it's suppressed. It's suppressed. But as I mentioned before, there's gains. So this is what we're fighting for. This was a little intro. Of course, the history is a lot more vast than what I laid it out here, but this is just a very small amount of history that has been going on in the experiment of anarchism, the idea that I align with.